All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping in for some serious Formula One drama.
Oh, it's more than drama.
Right. It feels like a full-blown earthquake is rumbling through Maranello right now. You got this intense crossfire involving John Elkann, Charles Leclerc, even Lewis Hamilton. It's a mess.
It is absolute chaos. And what's really fascinating, amid all this political fire, is one name just keeps getting dragged back into it. ENRICO CARDILE.
Yes.
There's this bizarre, almost surreal internal push at Ferrari to blame him for the SF25's supposed poor performance, even though he's been gone for months.
And that is exactly what we are here to challenge today. This is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to cut through the political noise. We're going to use cold, hard data from the early season, from those critical development points. And we're going to figure out, once and for all, did Cardile's initial vision actually fail? Or does the fault lie? Well, much closer to home in Maranello's current structure.
Exactly. We have to follow the timeline and the metrics. At the end of the day, whispers and political blame games, they don't win you championships.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the fundamental timeline. Cardile left Ferrari in July of last year.
Right.
So, based on that date alone, his hands were off the development wheel pretty early on. So what was the full extent of his influence on this year's car?
Well, his input really boils down to two core things: the concept itself and the absolutely critical decision to go for a 99% new car philosophy.
That was the big moment of reckoning for them.
It was. He was convinced, and, the data suggests he was right, that the previous car had it had hit its performance ceiling. There was simply no more margin left. Cardile signed off on that radical shift. The team that stayed behind, they were the ones who had to execute it after he was gone.
So, okay, let's hold that initial philosophy up to light. If the concept was actually sound, we should see real demonstrable improvements right at the start of the season.
Compared to last year, absolutely.
Let's look at those first three races.
Let's do it. We have to start in Australia. Now, last year, Ferrari was actually pretty competitive there. P2, just, 0.2 of a second off pole?
Very close.
This year? While on paper, it looks like a flop. P7, nearly 0.7 off.
So wait. Right away, anyone just looking at the grid would say, well, the new car is a failure.
You would, but here's the crucial detail, the part that makes this analysis so tricky. Ferrari actually improved their absolute lap time by 0.4 of a second year over year.
Hold on. 0.4 faster than the year before, but they drop 5 places on the grid and lose half a second to pole. I mean, isn't that still a net failure? The competition just moved forward even more.
That's the skepticism you need to have. But you have to factor in the context. Leclerc's car that weekend, it was specifically set up for rain that was expected. Rain that never really came, so it wasn't even optimized for the dry track conditions they actually got. To gain 0.4 of absolute pace while running a compromised conservative setup, that tells me the fundamental platform, Cardile's concept, was incredibly strong, inherently faster.
That completely flips the narrative, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests the core decision was already validated right from the start. Okay, let's move on. China.
China is, I think, even more compelling. Last year, they were 0.6 off pole in qualifying. This year,
Much closer.
barely 0.2. That is a massive jump in competitiveness relative to the frontrunners. A huge gain.
And you can't talk about China without talking about that one moment that showed the car's true potential.
Hamilton in the sprint race.
Exactly.
I mean, for him to win the sprint in only his second Grand Prix with the team, that just showed everyone the massive, raw, inherent speed of this new concept when the setup was properly unlocked. It proved the car had a really high peak.
Let's hit the third data point then. Japan. Last year, Sainz was the best Ferrari, P4, almost half a second off. This year, Leclerc was P4 again, but only 0.3 off. And here's the crazy number. They improved their overall lap time by a stunning 1.4 seconds.
1.4. That's nearly a second and a half. It's huge.
So if we just take those first 3 races, the data seems pretty unambiguous, right?
It is. The initial concept, which is the full extent of Cardile's influence, was a good decision. It delivered a faster car, and it improved their performance relative to the competition.
So if the blueprint was solid, the fault must be in how it was built. And look, if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome to the deep dive.
Hey, everyone.
Definitely don't forget to hit subscribe for more F1 content. We're about to shift focus completely. If Cardile's initial vision was sound, where exactly did the wheels start coming off? Where did the next team, the one led by Luke Serra, failed to carry that concept forward?
Well, the first really critical test for that new development team came at the Spanish Grand Prix. This race was right after a technical directive that limited wing flex.
Right. A big opportunity for teams that got it right.
And a potential disaster for those who missed the mark.
And Spain feels like the inflection point, where everything just went sideways for them.
Yeah.
Last year, Leclerc, P5, 3/10 off pole. This year, Hamilton P5, but almost half a second off.
And while the pole time itself only got worse by a tenth, Ferrari they failed to keep pace.
They lost ground.
They did. Ferrari lost 3/10 compared to their own time from the previous year. And they lost a ton of ground to the competition, especially McLaren, who took a huge step forward there. This is the first undeniable negative point for that post-CARDILE development team. The gap grew where their whole job was to shrink it.
But the big swing, the one they really hyped up, was that major upgrade, right? The new rear suspension they brought in around Belgium. They even used a filming day for it.
That was supposed to be the fix, the silver bullet.
And what happened?
It was marketed as the solution, and it immediately failed to change their trajectory. In fact, it was worse than that. It had these immediate, conflicting, and detrimental effects. It reportedly really hurt Hamilton's confidence in the car. He found it very uncomfortable, missed Q3 in Hungary right after.
So they had a solid blueprint from CARDILE, but when they tried to add the expensive rooftop balcony, that rear suspension update, they actually made the whole house less stable.
That is a perfect analogy. A costly, high-profile misstep that immediately sidelined one of their top drivers, and any benefit Leclerc saw was, well, it was a mirage.
How so?
Look at Hungary. Leclerc grabs pole position, which on the surface sounds great, but he did it with these super aggressive setup choices, car heights, tire pressures that were just completely unsustainable in a race.
And in the race itself.
He finished P4, the exact same position as the year before. They peaked early, but couldn't convert it into anything meaningful.
And that mirage just collapsed so fast after that. You saw disasters in the Netherlands, Italy, Azerbaijan, Singapore, Brazil. The speed of that drop-off is just startling.
Think about Italy. Leclerc went from winning last year to finishing 25 seconds behind this year. Couldn't even challenge McLaren's. The car just was not evolving under that new leadership.
So we've got development stagnation.
Yeah.
That's failure number one.
Yes, but the sources point to something even deeper, something more systemic than just engineering. It's the operational inefficiency on the track itself.
Okay, what is this second, more crucial problem? This goes beyond just hardware, right?
This is where we connect all the dots, and it explains why the team can look like a world beater one session and then just completely lose the plot the next.
And Hamilton pointed this out.
He did. In his second detailed report to Ferrari, he specifically flagged the deep issues within the operational side of the team. They seem to have this procedural inability to turn potential into actual maximized results during a race weekend.
Let's go back to that China example. The car was a rocket in the sprint, but by the race, the performance was, quote, diluted. So if they start fast, it sounds like they're great at running the default settings, but just terrible at real-time iteration as the weekend progresses.
Precisely. They have an excellent simulator. That means they arrive at the track with a really powerful, fast, theoretical base setup. And they have incredibly fast drivers who can hit the ground running. That's why they look great in FP1 or the sprint.
But then what happens?
But as the weekend unfolds, as competitors use all the new data coming off the track, changing temperatures, wind, tire wear to optimize their cars, Ferrari just fails to keep up.
And what does that failure look like on a Sunday?
Think of it this way. Ferrari arrives with a powerful car, but they're driving it with an instruction manual printed last Tuesday. Every other top team is constantly rewriting their manual on Friday night and Saturday morning based on those crucial micro-optimizations.
Ferrari just can't.
They can't keep pace with those rapid adjustments. They lack the procedural dexterity to turn that potential into results when the pressure is really on. That is the systemic issue Hamilton flagged, and it's why the car always seems to get slower relative to the field over 48 hours.
So the accountability trail, based on this data, it seems crystal clear. The initial concept was good. It gave them a faster platform.
No doubt.
But Ferrari failed in two spectacular ways. One, failing to execute the development under the new leadership, and two, this deep-seated operational problem that stops them from using the potential they so clearly have.
Absolutely. The data confirms the blame cannot rest on CARDILE. He was gone long before the critical development points that destroyed the car's momentum. The responsibility lies squarely with the team's execution or lack thereof.
And yet, despite all this, we see this this surreal internal politics playing out.
Yeah.
You have reports saying the justification inside is that it's Cardile's car, so the current team can deflect blame. And then you have John Elkann wading in, suggesting the engineers and mechanics are fine, but, quote, the pilots should concentrate more and talk less.
It's the definition of corporate deflection.
Right.
I mean, look, Ferrari hasn't won a title since 2008. They've had Alonso, Vettel, Leclerc, Sainz, and now Hamilton. Elite, world champion caliber drivers.
The best of the best.
Blaming the guy who left or blaming the drivers is just actively avoiding the much more painful, necessary structural changes that need to happen at the very top of that organization. The data doesn't lie.
So the war in Maranello is clearly not ending anytime soon. And that leaves you with this question. If the initial car concept was good, but the development and the operations failed so spectacularly to deliver, what fundamental structural change is truly needed for this team to finally translate all that potential into a championship?
That's the question they've needed to answer for over a decade. Until they fix that operational deficit, they're just going to keep running a strong car at 80% of its potential.
A truly explosive and data-driven deep dive. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe and follow the deep dive so you never miss out on the analysis that cuts right through the noise. We'll catch you on the next one.